everybody. So, chapter 13.4 talks about California and Utah and their path to statehood and their role in America's manifest destiny. The California Gold Rush started when gold was discovered at Sutter's Mill in 1848. People swarmed to California hoping to get rich. Those who arrived in California in 1849 were nicknamed the 49ers, which is where the San Francisco football team name comes from. People traveled to California by sea. They went along the Oregon Trail. They went along the Santa Fe Trail as well. About 80% of the 49ers were American. The remaining 20% was made up of immigrants from Mexico, South America, Europe, Australia, and China. The Californios were Mexicans living in California. After the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, they were now considered U.S. citizens. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo also gave them rights to their land. The Land Law of 1851 established a group of reviewers who examined the Californios' land rights. When a new settler claimed land held by a Californio, they went to court. Some Californios were able to keep their land, but many lost their rights. The life of a 49er. Because of the gold hunt, towns and small cities appeared basically overnight. Miners poured into newly built towns that held large numbers of hotels, shops, grocery stores, bakeries, and gambling houses. Those were called boom towns because they basically went up so fast. It was like somebody went boom, and there was a town there. San Francisco became a boom town, growing from a small village to a city of about 20,000 people in a relatively short amount of time. When 49ers would hear about gold at a particular site, they rushed over to it and began to pick apart the hillsides with their shovels and pickaxes. Most had very little previous experience with mining. This is the modern-day city of San Francisco. We can see that it's right here on the ocean, so it was very easy for people to arrive there by ship. The California Gold Rush more than doubled the world's supply of gold. Unfortunately, many 49ers found little to no gold. Many who actually found gold lost all their wealth through gambling or wild spending habits. Merchants in many boom towns were the ones who made the real money. Merchants could charge whatever they wanted for food and essential items, as no other nearby stores sold these products, meaning there was no competition. There was nobody that if you wanted to buy a pickaxe and there was only one person there and they were selling it for a really expensive price, you weren't able to actually go and shop around or try another store or another merchant. No, you had to buy it from whoever was there if you wanted it. There was one merchant, Levi Strauss, who sold miners durable pants made of a material called denim. You may have heard of his company before. Levi's is still around today, and if you actually look at the label on a pair of Levi's, you'll see that there's a scene from the California Gold Rush days. Many miners were lonely and often engaged in fighting and gambling. Mining towns had no police officers and no prisons. Citizens who were known as vigilantes formed committees to protect themselves. These vigilantes took the law into their own hands. They acted as the police, judge, jury, and even, in some cases, the executioner. Economic and political progress. Agriculture, shipping, trade, those all grew in California to meet the demand for food and other goods. Agriculture means farming, just as a reminder. This growth came with a need for better government. By 1849, Californians applied to become a state and wrote a constitution. The Constitution banned slavery, which caused a crisis in Congress. Remember, Congress wanted to keep the number of free states and slave states equal. Southern states did not want California to join. However, a compromise took place and California became a free state in 1850. Here is a copy of California's Constitution that was written in 1849. So now on to Utah. Members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormons, built large new communities in Utah. The founder of the Mormon Church, Joseph Smith, he was a New Englander living in Western New York. Smith said he received visions that led him to build a new church. He began preaching in 1830, along with the Great Awakenings that took place. Smith published the Book of Mormon in 1830. Smith hoped to use his visions to build an ideal society. He believed that property should be held in common rather than belong to individuals. Here we see a painting of Joseph Smith, and here is a modern copy of the book that he wrote, the Book of Mormon. Smith tried to form his community in New York, but neighbors disapproved and forced him out. In 1839, the Mormons purchased the town of Commerce, Illinois. It blossomed into a prosperous community. Unfortunately, Mormons continued to suffer from persecution. In 1844, Mormon church founder Joseph Smith was killed by a mob of local citizens. A man named Brigham Young took over following Joseph Smith's death. Here we have a picture of the Nauvoo, Illinois temple. Nauvoo was the name given to Commerce, Illinois, after it was purchased by the Mormons. New leader Brigham Young suggested that the Mormons move again in hopes of finding religious freedom. The Mormons would move west to Utah, which at the time was owned by Mexico. No Mexicans had settled in the area yet due to its harsh desert climate. About 12,000 Mormons made the journey to Utah. It was the single largest migration in American history. Their settlement, called Deseret, struggled at first. Mormon society eventually flourished, and by 1848, the United States had acquired the area from Mexico. Brigham Young went on to be named the first governor of the Utah Territory. By 1860, there were many Mormon communities in the United States. This did not mean that Utah would have an easy time becoming incorporated into the United States. In 1857 and 1858, war would almost break out between the Mormon communities and the United States Army. It was not until 1869 that Utah finally became a state. You may have heard of Brigham Young University, and the name comes from the Mormon leader and the first governor of Utah.